This hour is presented by Weber Chevrolet, with 4 locations to serve you. Online at weberchevrolet.com.
I was just listening to all that. Fascinating. 9:23, and McGraw back on Thursday. John Carney filling in. Tom O'Keefe, we brought along, normally with us in the afternoon on Fridays, to talk movies and the secret life of Walter Mitty, a vehicle for Ben Stiller, both as a director and as an actor and as a mediocre film. But some other things to talk about. Wolf on Wall Street, I have not heard one bad thing about this. And, of course, you got Martin Scorsese and Leonardo DiCaprio. Kind of hard to mess it up.
Well, there have actually been some bad things said about this
Really?
movie.
I haven't seen them.
I will not be one of those people. But it is set in the late 80s and into the mid-90s. And it follows a gentleman who sets up a stock brokerage firm that is just a tad sketchy, one might say, unlike the wonderful firms that are on Wall Street today. Right. And they basically took the boiler room mentality and moved it to Wall Street, and were just selling awful, lousy stocks that they knew were awful and lousy, and just flat out lying about them and pushing them up and holding them in shell companies and dumping them. But the movie is really about just the excesses of that era and that life, and this guy, it's based on a true story, is just the pinnacle of that degree of excess. And a lot of people, I shouldn't say a lot, but some people, especially Academy voters, they did a screening for the Academy, and people were walking out and yelling at Martin Scorsese, saying, "Shame on you for making this movie," because it is a very graphic sexual film. There's a lot of sex in this movie.
So what? Why Hollywood's walking out on something like that?
Yeah, I think because it's supposed to be like an Oscar film, and you don't normally get this degree of sex from Oscar type movies, Oscar bait as they call it. And there's a lot of sex in the movie. A lot of sex, and a lot of very demeaning sex, because it's the 90s, it's Wall Street, and so what goes hand in hand with 90s and Wall Street, but coke and hookers, and so like that it's not only that there's a lot of sex, it's a lot of kind of just using people type sex, and it's depicted graphically and frequently but it was a very large and frequent part of their lives and their business practices. It's going on in the office, on the jets, in the meetings.
Is this a Pixar flick?
Yes,
Did they animate this?
Yeah, and so there's a lot of that. So if you're the kind of person that's going to get put off by that, then you're going to get put off by this film. And so a lot of people feel that that's gratuitous, and it is gratuitous. But the thing is that the way these guys lived their lives was gratuitous.
Right.
So that's the whole point. Like, you really couldn't make this movie and be like, oh, and there were hookers too, but we're not going to show them to you, or we'll show them in one scene so you can see that it was there. Like, it was
all that they did.
It was integrated into their lives in the way that you have free coffee in the break room.
Right.
Like, that's how they had hookers and blow and quaaludes and I mean, it was just like, that's what they did. And so if you can get past that, this is a very, very, very good movie. And
what did you like about it? Other
it's
than
just
the hookers and the
well,
blow?
sure. I mean, who doesn't like hookers and blow on Christmas Day? It's 'tis the season, right? But that's not snow on your tree. It's DiCaprio's great. Jonah Hill plays kind of his sidekick, and Jonah Hill, who was really good in Moneyball but didn't do anything all that different, is amazing in this. In Moneyball, I thought he was good, but I felt he just kind of played a variation on what he'd been doing. But this is not that. This is a totally different character for him. I wouldn't be surprised to see him get nominated for a Best Supporting Actor Academy Award again. He was great. I mean, everybody in this movie just knocks it out of the park. They when you're in a Scorsese movie, you know that you need to bring your A game, and everybody does, no matter what level they're at in the movie. DiCaprio owns it, and it's just this runaway train of a movie, similar to American Hustle, which I compared to Goodfellas. This is like Goodfellas, but set against the backdrop of Wall Street, and it is just, like I said, it is just a runaway train of a movie, and it's 3 hours long. It gets maybe just a touch boring, and I shouldn't say boring, but I think the problem, and I use that term very slightly, is that there is so much being thrown at you so fast that like it can become almost exhausting at some point where you're just like, I need a moment to breathe, because these guys didn't take moments to breathe, because of the coke.
Right.
And the movie kind of replicates that. And so it almost feels like it's an hour and 20 minutes before this movie even goes, okay, here's what's going on. It's just, it takes off like a shot and just doesn't stop. And so even though it's super energetic and exciting, at some point it almost kind of beats you down. But I also think that's what I like about it, because that's what happens to these guys, is they live this life of wild excess that eventually beats them down, and you see that full arc of a story. And so, and supposedly it was originally a 4-hour cut. So I would love to know like what happens in that other hour, because they tell a
wait
full
till
story.
the DVD set comes out.
I'm sure it will be on there.
That'll be in there.
But it is an amazing movie. Like I said,
3 hours. That's
it
ambitious.
doesn't really. It doesn't. But Martin Scorsese. He knows how to make a movie.
But basically, he's been making 1-hour movies though with Boardwalk Empire.
Well, he does. He's a producer on that show, but I don't think he's actually.
I thought he was.
He might have
some
directed a couple, but I don't think he's doing all of them.
Yeah.
But that guy, he knows how to make a movie, and it moves at breakneck speed, and it's a fascinating story. And it's funny because it kind of tries to do what that Wall Street movie did, the sequel to Wall Street, and that movie didn't do it effectively at all. And I think because it tried to use things that were very current topics, right? Like it was trying to play off the financial collapse that we just had, and it just felt too close, and you didn't really understand it. And this is, even though it's taking place in the 90s and it's about what these kind of like, kind of bottom feeders created and the havoc that they wrought, it really is kind of a metaphor for what just happened. And you can see a lot of parallels to where almost like Wall Street was like, well, we should do that, but with our stuff. And so you can see those parallels. In the same way that the television show MASH wasn't really about the Korean War, I feel like this wasn't really about what happened in the 90s. It's really about what happened 40 years ago.
This was based on a true story.
Correct.
And the guy that wrote it, who was the guy portrayed by
DiCaprio,
Leo, did some time, did he not?
Yes, I think he ended up doing like 18 months. And some people are put off by the film because he does 18 months, and he even says that this is something of a spoiler, but it's a true story, so it's out there. But he's a rich guy. He doesn't even go to real prison,
right.
And so some people are like, well, we don't even see the guy get his comeuppance, and it's like, yeah, but don't be mad at the movie about that. That's not the movie's fault.
Right.
That's society's fault.
Right.
All
right, so that is Wolf on Wall Street. That is opened already. That is probably not a take a family to the theater film.
No.
Is it R-rated or did it get an NC-17?
No, it got an R, and there is some controversy about just why it didn't get an NC-17. And I think the reason it didn't is 2 words: Martin Scorsese.
Yeah, well, there you go. All right, so there's 2. We got how many more to do?
I got Grudge Match.
All right, we'll get to that here in just a second. Talk maybe some of the box office numbers as we get to the end of the year. Maybe pick some of your faves. You ready to do that, or you want to do that next week?
Maybe I'll work on that next week because I haven't really sat down.
Do your homework?
Yeah.
Okay, Betty.
Okay.
Picking up patterns and cocktail napkins.
Yeah.
For the wedding. 9:31. Quick break. More coming up with Tom O'Keefe. Find him online at reviewstl.com.